Today we're going to be solving some puzzles. We're starting out at the 1200 level. Now, before we jump into this, one quick piece of advice to solve these things is you always need to be looking at checks, captures, and attacks first and foremost. When you get to a position, the very first thing to do is to scan and go, am I winning? What is the evaluation of this position? What is going on? Alright? So, first things first, are we winning? It seems like we're down some material and our queen is under attack. Always looking at checks first, okay? So, when you look at the check first, and the king takes, don't stop your thought process there. Now that the king is wide open, you're looking at this as a check, but then obviously the queen will just trade. If check here, don't forget that you have a second rook, okay? And that's going to be a check, which is going to force the king to the g-file, and then you're going to pick up the queen, because the king is disconnected from the rook. Alright, it's never going to be something like takes, takes, and rook h8. Alright, takes, takes, rook h8, you're not up material at the end of that, you're not even forced to win anything, you're just going to win a pawn, and then there's probably a very high chance the king gets away. Okay, so you take on h2, rook comes, the king has to block, boom, we solved it, let's keep on rolling. Alright, what's going on here? Material is completely equal, so in a position like this, when material is totally equal, your rook is also under attack, you're either going to be up a lot of material at the end of the puzzle, or you are going to be checkmating. And obviously, once again, we have to start with the checks. Check, taken. Check, here, nothing. What about this check? King goes there, that's mate. If check, rook goes there, we're just going to take the rook, and it looks like we're winning. So it's bishop d5, and the puzzle just ends. So that's nice. Okay, what's going on here? Again, a position where we are equal. Looks like this pawn is kind of going to be like, you know, the big storyline here. There's no checks. So when there's no checks, the next thing that you do is you go to the captures. The only capture that we have is this one. And what I'll say about that situation is that the king should not be the guy blocking the passed pawn. So this one is takes, takes, and then a very nice attacking move. The third tier of thought after checks and captures, and that one is going to be an attack. Takes, takes, rook here. Now, before you play this last move, you need to go, can they check me? Can they put some danger to me? And they can, there's this check, but you're just going to go king h8 and you're fine. You're fine because rook d1 is coming and then you're going to promote your pawn. Okay? Simply winning. So takes, rook here, okay, and this is, you know, the computer just giving away the rook, and we keep on rolling. Knight takes bishop, so obviously in a game, this is the first thing that you look at, but in a game, once again, you need to look at checks first. Don't just auto-recapture. It's a very common mistake that players make. They auto-take back. In this position, you have a check, and your check is right here. And then the king is going to move to either of these two squares, and you're going to take the bishop with a check and then recapture the knight. So this is the right first move. Now, this is not free. So you're going to take the bishop here, in my opinion. But maybe let me double check this. Do we have anything better? It doesn't look like it. I think we're going to take, and I would like to take the knight. I'd like to give this check, but none of them do anything, because if you give this check, this happens. So if you're down a knight, and you've got no mate, what do you do now? Passed pawns. See, we've had two motifs of passed pawns. Just push the pawn, and you're promoting. Because you're threatening the knight, and if the knight had moved, because you're pinning the knight to the king, this knight is not covering the promotion square, so you're just making a queen. And now you would just take the queen, and there you go. 17 points for this puzzle. Very nice. Alright. A puzzle here where it looks like it's equal. It's equal because even though we have a rook, they have a knight. We both have a bishop. They have a knight and two pawns. So, if you look for a check, you're going to find the right answer right off the bat. We've got two checks, this one, and you'll notice that this one also attacks the bishop, and at the end of the puzzle, you should win material. This one's kind of easy. Check, pick up the bishop. Easy, 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 right? Let's keep it rolling. All right, I see a king wide open. I see a king right here. If you don't do something quick, you will get mated. So unless you're winning material here, it's probably checkmate. So now we start looking for the checks. That's a check. That's a check. That's a check, and that's a check. Now, which of those makes sense? Probably just pushing and this one. Let's start with this. If we go there and the king goes there, we now have this check. King there. Oh, and then we have a very nice idea. Very, very nice idea. Which is very hard to see. It looks like in that position with the queen here and the king here, we're out of checks. But there we have one more check, and it's rook takes pawn. Because if the pawn takes us back, we have a pawn here and a queen here. Let me draw actually in... Can I do green? Green, green, and the king is there. And we're going to play queen f6 mate. That's a very hard one to see in advance. But the way you can basically discard a move like this is that after king e7, you do not have a follow-up check. That's the most important thing when calculating checks, is you do not have a follow-up check. And queen a6, we do not have a follow-up. So it's got to be g5, and now we have a follow-up, and the whole point of this position, this, which is the hardest thing to see. But if you don't see it, play into it, and this is going to be mate. Very nice. So a follow-up check. So once again, you want to play queen a6, but since after king e7, you don't have another check, you have nothing. You don't have anything. You should not solve it like, I'm going to go here, and then, excuse me, and then here, and then I'm going to play g5 with a threat. What? What does that even mean? g5 with the threat of mate? Your opponent is going to mate you before that happens, alright? So, what is the eval here? It looks like we're down a knight. Our opponent has 2 knights, and we have 1 bishop, so it looks like we're down material, but I see some devastating stuff going on over there. Okay, so I think it's check here, bring the queen, and then queen h3, and that looks like force mate. That looks like force mate. The only thing that we need to make sure of is we're not blundering any sort of perpetual in that position. So, in that position, there is knight e8. And I think we run away with the king. So sometimes, in a position where you have force mate but they have checks, you need to find the safest getaway. So you sacrifice the rook, queen h8, only move, king g1, and then queen h3. And in that position, they have check, and you basically need to make a move where you get away. So you're going to play this. That's going to be their only other check, and after the king gets out here, there is no more checks. Let's see if that's right. So check, queen h8, queen h3. Okay, they play the wrong check. I mean, this is far more resistant. After which this check, and the king needs to go to g5, and it looks like we're safe. But they play this, and this one's easy because I think we just take with the rook, and there's no more checks. Okay, there is one more check. So picking up some rating, very nice. Alrighty, again, looks like a puzzle where we are down a ton of material. We're down a rook. We're also basically a move away from getting mated, so this one's either going to be a counterattack mate or a draw. Alright, counterattack mate or a draw. This is the only check that looks like it makes any sense, so you can basically just play it. And that is the only check that makes any sense, right? So, probably it's just queen f2. This is the only check that makes any sense. Although, maybe there is bishop g4 as well here. But I somehow don't think that that's right. I mean, I think that that just allows one of these pieces to come back. So, we gotta play the check that makes the most sense. Queen f1, and then there is probably... Yeah, this looks pretty good. Okay, it's just over. Okay, so this is kind of a weird puzzle, because you had nothing here. I mean, you were getting mated. You just had to play all the obvious checks, and then all of a sudden the puzzle was right. So, you know... It is what it is, but that wasn't the greatest example of puzzle solving. All right, here's a puzzle where we've got a king and 3 pieces left. Check. Wait, this is just mate. What a weird puzzle. Check. King has to go this way, and then we just take this pawn. It's just mate. Oh, we gotta take with the bishop here. We gotta take with the bishop, and then we gotta take with the bishop again, and then it's just mate. You know, just don't look at the empty squares. Big hint! Don't only look at the empty squares. That's what people do. They see, oh, empty square, I can go there. You can also take pieces. That's just mate. It's a big mistake people make. They don't see captures as easily. Alright. This one's not a mate, because the only checks that we have are these two, and they don't do anything. So then I'm looking at bishop takes d4. But after knight takes d4, I don't see anything. So this is so far going to be the most instructive moment of the stream. This is the third tier of forcing moves. moves that your opponent must react to, and those are attacking moves. Moves that create threats, and at the very top of that hierarchy is the queen, not the king, because the king is a check. Check is number one, always. So the third tier is attack, and so for that reason, we look at bishop f4, and if we look at bishop f4, it is defended by the knight, and the queen's just trapped. The queen's just got nothing. So look at bishop f4, create an attack on the thing that's worth the most, and bishop f4 just traps the queen, and we win the queen. So we didn't even need to think that much on this puzzle. You see, this puzzle is rated 1553. Those of you watching can definitely solve this. Definitely solve this. All right, let's keep it rolling. Rook comes down. I see that my queen is under attack. If I move my queen anywhere, well, moving the queen somewhere is not going to be the solution to the puzzle, so check is the first thing we look at. This is the first thing that we look at. When the bishop takes, the bishop has now moved out of the way of the pawn. Most people would just forget about the puzzle at that point, but we have g7 check. When g7 check gets on the board, if the king takes, the queen replaces the pawn and it's over. The queen replaces the pawn and it's over. So here, push, king takes, queen g6, king back, we take the bishop, it's mate. However, what if g7, bishop g7? Well, then we have a second rook coming in, and that's game over as well. If the rook blocks, we take, and let's not forget that our queen is still covering that. And it's going to be mate. So this one is solved just using the principles of checks. Just using the principles of checks. Takes. Okay, queen is sacrificed, and it's over. So it's all checks. All right? Up until about 2000, you're basically going to be getting only checks. Checks, captures, attacks, all those things. Very rarely are you going to be getting positions where you're defending and you need to basically find a defensive move or a draw. Those are sprinkled in there, but they're pretty rare. They are pretty rare, let me tell you. All right? Okay, so this one, no checks, no captures. I mean, that's a capture. So attack, that is not an attack. That is an attack, but it doesn't guarantee we win anything. And this one is just rook d8 with a counter pin. Not a counter pin, sorry, just a pin. Just a counter attack on the queen in the center. Because he was threatening queen d7. Rook d8 just picks up material. And easy. 1000 level puzzle. Alright, looks like I'm getting mated. So, I mean, checks. Check. King goes there, queen d1 is mate. Check, king goes there, queen d3 is mate. Okay, that was easy. See? I mean, that took 14 seconds. Just look at the checks. Bring in the pieces. Don't get tunnel vision and only focus on one piece. Anytime you move a piece, things open up for other pieces. And you need to see how your pieces work together. Right? So queen d3. Alright. Check is the first thing that I'm looking at. Oh, so this is interesting because most people here would simply recapture, right? Rook takes rook, most people would recapture. But before you recapture, notice that this is happening, right? So just give a check. And then take the rook for free and you don't lose the knight. So this one was a little bit of a defensive puzzle. But it's the same thing. Give a check and then take. Give a check and then take. You know? Nothing too complicated. Alright, check. Queen takes. Well, this one's kind of easy, isn't it? Just takes here and take the queen. And then you just have a queen and a bishop for two rooks. Okay, I mean, I don't understand what the challenge here is. Okay? I mean, like, come on. Anybody can solve this puzzle. I think the trick is knight f3, but then just rook takes. I mean, this was... You know, this is not a... This is not such a complicated puzzle. Okay, we've got this position. I'm looking at checks. So that doesn't do anything. I can take this. They take, I take with the queen? I don't understand. What is so difficult about this position? I don't I don't understand. What is so difficult about this position? I mean, the only alternative is this move. And that tries to threaten a mate. But bishop f2, I think there's just knight f1. This one's really weird. I mean, I think it's just this. I mean, what is so complex about this? This is not a good puzzle. What? Theme battery. It says the theme is battery. How is this the theme? A battery is when you have two pieces attacking on the same diagonal or vertical or horizontal, like queen and bishop or queen and rook. How is the... Okay, I don't know. Whatever. I don't make the puzzles, I just solve them. Alrighty. Alright, this one checks, captures, attacks. Again, checks, captures, attacks. No checks. This is the only capture. You have two attacking moves in this position. What are they? This is one. This is one, and that doesn't guarantee you win anything. And the second one is a little harder to see. It's very rare a rook just gets to hop into the territory and attack everybody. And this is a fork on two bishops teaming up with the knight here. So rook c3, and that's it. And now you just need to find the right move. Can you find the right move? Do you take the knight first or the bishop? Because your knight is hanging. Which one do you take first? That's a good question for my live chat. You gotta take the bishop first. Because then when he takes, and remember, again, he can't take the rook because the knight is guarding. So takes, then you take the knight. Because otherwise, if you take the knight first and he takes, you're not taking the bishop. The bishop lost one of its attackers, right? And then you take the bishop, then you take the knight. So there we go, and we cross 1400. So that's how you would approach 1200 to 1400 level puzzles. Let's keep going though, you know? Let's keep puzzle solving, applying the same methodology and see if they get any harder in the next set of points.